Welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast that's all about real conversations for real transformation. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, professional speaker, MC, and best-selling international author. Here, we tackle the tough stuff, the mud that we all have found ourselves in. We talk about the pivots, the challenges, and the victories that shape our lives and our businesses. From overcoming trauma and finding your voice to navigating life's unexpected twists, we get raw, honest, and open. You'll hear from inspiring guests who share their stories of resilience, healing, and growth. Whether it's breaking through emotional abuse, embracing self-worth, or thriving in entrepreneurship, you'll find connection, empowerment, and the tools to keep you moving forward. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for stories that hit home and conversations that make a difference. Let's get real together. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with me today. How are you? We are now, a little over halfway through the year by the time that this podcast episode gets released. And I feel like this is also the time where we really start to see where we shift from the beginning of the year. What were we doing on the first day? What was our New Year's resolutions? Where did we fail? Where do we want to change, right? And how do we want to finish out the rest of the year? And what does that look like moving forward? So I am super excited to bring this actually kind of conversation to the forefront. This is like perfect timing, Veronica. So thank you so much for joining us, Veronica. Tell everybody.
Everybody, hi. I am Veronica Drake, and I love your energy. I knew the minute we met that we were going to be something.
Thank you, thank you. I think that's probably one of my favorite things is I tend to get that from a lot of my guests, and I'm like, yes, it's infectious. And what's really funny is I used to hide that for so long, because especially as women, right? We're like, oh God, that's a lot. That's a lot of energy. She's probably a lot as a person. And luckily my husband puts up with it and he loves it too, although he's a lot sometimes too. So it works out wonderfully. But
Gotta love it.
gotta love it. So, Veronica, tell us all, give us a little bit of a background of who you are and kind of what it is that you're doing and also kind of pivoting into, because I know we're going to get into this as well, which I'm super excited. But yeah, give us a little bit of some information.
So my story begins October 2nd, 1962. Ah, there it is. I was born at the intersection of alcoholism and mental illness. Ah, it gets better. My mother and my father. You grow up a certain way and you learn certain behaviors and you learn certain definitions about yourself. And the thing with me was I was never willing to accept the label.
Mm.
I was always pushing boundaries and challenging, and quite frankly, by all accounts, I should be in an alley somewhere, doing something nefarious. But the reality was, I just knew that I was born for more. I could feel it in my bones. That's not to say I didn't have trials and tribulations, because in 1996, I decided I didn't want to walk the earth anymore. And I was stopped by divine intervention, literally.
Mm.
And so I became, giving you the very condensed version, I became a business owner, known as a psychic medium. I could see things, feel things, hear things. And for the last 20 plus years, I've been doing intuitive guidance work. And that's the abbreviated version.
That is so much to unpack there, Veronica.
Oh,
My
yeah.
brain is going to explode. I have so many questions.
Wait, it gets better. At 62, current age, I was diagnosed with ADHD. Oh, go
Mm. That's always the fun stuff, right?
throw it in there.
Or just go ahead, pile it on. Okay, I got to backtrack here just a little bit because one, I love your story. I love that, despite what you grew up with, you made the decision. Hey, everybody, we have a choice. I know it's sometimes a hard choice, but we have a choice. You made the choice to do something different, to not follow that pattern, to not follow those pathways, to make and carve your own, which led you down other places. Now, you said that, literally by divine intervention, that
Mhm.
you were not able to leave this earth. and then you became a psychic medium. Like, holy crap, hold on. That's like two opposite sides of the spectrum. So I need some background in here. And fill in as much as you're comfortable with filling in, but what happened? And then how did psychic medium come into that?
So I don't come from a long line or a legacy, or in fact we never like talked about that being psychic or being a medium. That was never a thing. I couldn't give you evidence of that when I was growing up in my life, although in hindsight it comes to mind I would see spirits and hear spirits and
Oh,
nothing
cool.
wonky, weird, or scary. But in 1996, a very cold, wintry November day here on the East Coast, and I went to careen my car into the side of a bridge, and it literally going downhill stopped on a sheet of ice. I get chills when I tell the story. My car stopped. It stopped on a sheet of ice. And I just sat there and I'm like, what? What? How did, like, it's ice. How did this stop? And then it just gently glided over to the side of the road and the car got so warm. I mean, I've never felt a warmth like that since. And I felt like the car, you know how like you have to go like this because it's full and you want to fit everybody in? That's what I felt like I had to do in my car. It was filled with this energy. And the hair on my arms goes up, but I heard, we've got you. You're not going anywhere. Like, we've got you. And I was like, oh, fill in the blank with your word of choice. Uh, and from that moment, I wish I could say, it was glory and hearts and stars, but I was stubborn. I was like, all right, what is this? And okay, and I started to have conversations with something bigger than I am. I didn't grow up with religion. Christmas was Santa Claus and Easter was the Easter Bunny. I didn't know from nothing. And I began to know things about people, like like weird things. Like, how would I know that? We would go out to eat, and I would say to my husband, "Oh, this, that, and the other thing about the waitress." And sure enough, she would come over and start talking to me. And people from all over have just always been attracted to me, and they tell me everything. And then when I can relate, because I already feel it, they're like, and they just feel safe. So yeah.
Mm. I love that. It's really interesting too, is one of the reasons why I originally went into the medical field years ago. That was actually one of the things that I noticed when I was in the medical field. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm psychic, you guys, at all, but one of the things that always happened, and it still happens now, is I get around people and I spend some time, and then all of a sudden, like, they just start telling me things. And a lot of times they're like, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I told you that. But it's really interesting. And I think that comes with that empath piece as well, is like, I could feel what they were saying. And I
Mhm.
tell my husband this all the time, and he laughs at me, but he's like, it's not fair because I know when he is in a specific mood. And I'm like, that doesn't matter the words that you tell me. I know what's going on. He's like, well, that's not fair. And I'm like, well, I can't help that. Like, it's a gift, and it's also kind of not a curse, but it's kind of annoying sometimes because there are times where like I'm just kind of doing my own thing, and then all of a sudden like I get really teary-eyed and I'm like, what the hell? What the hell? What just happened? So in like I this is crazy to me because like I don't even know how I would fathom like my car just being moved to the side and then something telling me that it's got me. And I know, like you said, it wasn't all rainbows and everything afterwards, but it obviously shifted your mindset enough for you to say, okay, something else is out there for me versus how I'm currently thinking. So what did that feel like? How did that kind of lead you down the path that you're on now?
So, and just let me preface it all with I had everything. Now I'm using air quotes, everything that you're supposed to want.
Mm,
2.5 kids, they were healthy. I had the great husband. I had, the great job. Everything was good. But I had made some choices based on what I learned to self-sabotage. I had heard a lot of people made some not so nice choices. I wasn't a very nice person, both to myself and to others. And so I believe one of the four D's will always get you when spirit's looking for you: death, disease, disaster, or divorce.
ooh.
Quite frankly, that year after 1997, I was hit with three of the four D's.
Mm.
It was divorce, it was death, it was disaster. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I began to wonder spiritually, what's out there? Like what? And I dove into the Wayne Dyers and the Marianne Williamsons and the Carolyn Mace. And I mean, I had some really great teachers, Alan Watts. I mean, all of these. But it never occurred to me that I would become a psychic, AKA intuitive, until I went to the beach. And this girl was walking down the beach, and my then second husband, because I had gone through divorce, I said to my husband, she's going to stop and she's going to talk to us. And he goes, we don't know anybody here. What? And I said, and I just know things. And I'm talking. Sure enough, she stops right in front of us. Never met the woman in my life. And I started to ramble about her life. I knew names of people.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
she sat down on the beach with us for 3 hours. I couldn't stop saying things. That was the first understanding that I was really on to something or into something.
That's so interesting though too, because like I feel like I've spoke with so many people that are in a space of, and I've been in this space as well, like logically, right? And what we've been taught and what we've grown up with, that makes zero sense. But then there's like this other piece of you that is like, but it feels right and it makes sense. And it's like the two, in my personal opinion, I love your perspective. Like it's almost like they clash and fight each other. And you're just trying to figure out, like, as much as part of your body is like, but this is what happening. Like, here's the belief. Like, here's what's going on. This other part is going, we are absolutely crazy. We have lost it. Like, this is not how things are going to work. This is not how it's supposed to work. And I feel like there's this not necessarily a turmoil, but it's just like a tug of war before you kind of figure out which direction you want to go. And then when you get to that point, how did you make that ultimate decision to say, you know what? I'm going to decide to lean into this new belief and move forward with it.
First of all, I teach women, I work with midlife women primarily, that your thoughts are visitors. They don't have to take up residence, they're just visiting. And so I really lived that statement. I didn't believe what I was thinking. And I say that because when I believed what I thought, I didn't like the actions that came out of me. And so I was like,
Mm.
wait a minute, and there's literature everywhere and psychology to back this up, but there's little old me going, wait a minute, but I'm becoming this if I think it. And so, I realized I had a choice to think something different. And the bottom line is this: we are all born intuitive. Nobody got skipped, okay? It is your birthright to be intuitive. You were born with it. And so what happens is we get born neutral, right? We come in and then we assume the identity of the family of origin. And then pretty soon we assume all of their beliefs. And we're walking around and we're forgetting where we came from. And we're not trusting ourselves because, oh, there's something over here that I could trust more than myself. Here's the thing. Growing up like I did, I think it was a benefit and an advantage to me that I couldn't really trust people.
Mm.
Because when you're in alcoholism and mental illness, you learn different things than people who don't have that. And I realized I had myself to rely on. I realized that people didn't mean what they said and they didn't follow through. So as a result, I wasn't a very trusting person. I wouldn't recommend it. But, but I think if I look at it from the perspective of that was my teacher, it was incredibly helpful. I was in a job that was making a lot of money because that's the worldly thing, right? I had the
Hmm.
great benefits and you do what you do. And all of a sudden, one day, I went, I don't like this. I can't, I feel like I'm selling my soul to do this job. I worked, by
Mm.
the way, nonprofit because I thought nonprofit's going to save the world because after my epiphany, what a better job. I had it wrong. Nonprofits don't save the world. People who are understanding of themselves and aware save the world. And so I went down the path of becoming a life coach, and I became a spiritual life coach. And I became a certified spiritual counselor through the Metaphysical Institution. And I began to get all kind of metaphysical education. And it's just one thing, and it snowballed. One thing led to another, and clients started to find me. And Then I did all the businessy things, but that's another.
All the things you have to do to
Oh
keep it sustainable. But what's really interesting though is, you went back to you still made a choice.
yeah. Mhm.
And what I really love about this, because I dealt with this as well, is the choice to choose different thoughts. Because coming from 10 years in an abusive relationship, I had thought patterns and beliefs and things that had been bestowed on me, not because I wanted them,
Mhm.
but because I was in that environment that kind of became who I was and what I believed. And a lot of that had to do with me not believing in myself and not believing that I was worthy and, all the other things that your brain loves to do. But I love this concept of they're just visitors. And that's really interesting because that I feel like that's where I found myself as well, was which direction do I want to go? And do I enjoy what these thoughts are doing for me? Or is this actually kind of like pissing me off and making life harder? And what if some of these people that are talking about these things, maybe I could try it and just see what happens. And that was my first dive into kind of the psychology and understanding how the brain kind of thinks, and then kind of open the doors to understanding that we have a conscious and a subconscious. And that was like the mind-blowing moment, right? And I know that not all psychology agrees with it, but I'm going to completely disagree with them because I truly do believe that we have a part of us that is kind of running the show in the background. And it's running it based off of, like you said, our parents and our beliefs and the ways that we were brought up and the things that we've been through. And it's kind of like it latches on because it wants to puzzle piece it together so that it can create the road in front of you. However, you have the ability to be very, very aware and available and then shift that path and take those puzzle pieces apart and find the ones that fit better to make that road a little smoother. And I think that that was one of the coolest things that I ever discovered probably about 5 or 6 years ago, was just being able to see that. And that actually is what kind of started helping me heal myself and the things that I had been through. And then ultimately being able to help my kids and
Mhm.
how they could be raised now into young adults. Do you see that you kind of feel like you fell down that path as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Brilliantly said, by the way. I also am somebody that just takes direction from my inner voice. I believe that we are a soul. I believe spirit is the source that fills us. Soul is what we come in to do. And the ego plays a part in that also. So we're this fractal of a human, right? But I liken it to this. Look through a kaleidoscope and you turn the wheel, and it's like all those beautiful movements. To deny any piece of yourself is to deny the whole. So becoming aware of who you are and not judging it, right? Like, because
Mm-hmm.
what do we do, especially with social media and all the looks out there, the comparison, and it's like, why would you wouldn't compare two snowflakes to each other? That would be ridiculous. We're parts of nature. Don't compare yourself to anyone. It just won't make sense ever.
I love this too because that was one of the things that I really feel like I had to work on was this judgment piece. And what I found very fascinating from a podcast guest I had a while back is they said, when you think about the way that you judge other people and things around you, look at yourself because more than likely you are judging yourself the same way. You just don't recognize it. And I thought, oh my gosh. I think I'm doing that. And I remember after that, like every time I had some type of judgmental thought, I was like, do I think that about myself? Do I feel that way? Do I decide not to dress that way? Because it just, all these things. And it's really interesting to have these different perspectives that kind of populate and allow you to ultimately, in my personal opinion, have the type of control that we're all wishing that we had.
Mhm.
And this becomes the control that we're seeking. And I think that it goes back to like where you were talking about when we first start out, which is we start neutral. And so that to me is how I try to see the world and situations is in a space of neutrality, in a space of how can we be curious? How can we understand? What are the labels and the things that are behind that? And then we kind of get to see more of the picture versus what we're all trained to do, which is within like 2.5 seconds, right? We're like, oh, okay, I've already made a decision. I don't like this person. This is what's going on. It's like, no, 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 no. You have a fraction of what is going on in an entire scenario, in an entire world of something, and you're trying to make a judgment and a call and a decision based off of that. Well, that's not fair, but that's how we've been taught to be, right? And I think that that has been one of the more interesting pieces of something I really love to play around with on a regular basis is when I find myself doing that. And I'm like, okay, wait. Okay, so I have a part of the story. What is going on here? What could be potentially going on there? And I find myself in the space of being able to let go a lot easier,
Oh,
which
yeah.
was very hard for a really long time. I remember being that person that would drag something on for days and weeks and months. I don't know anybody that's listening if you've ever done this, Veronica, if you've ever done this, you have like that really nitty-gritty conversation with someone, you're so irritated and fired up. So like you continue the conversation in your head as if you were talking to them, even though the battle's over with and like nothing you're saying actually means anything. But for whatever reason, it's supposed to make you feel better. Like it takes so much energy and so much joy from you. And the first time I caught myself doing that, I was like, why am I doing this?
Mhm.
Why am I expelling so much of my time focused on something that's already occurred? They're not going to say that. I don't know what they'd ever say to it. I'm not going to follow up with them like, what is the point of this?
Well, we live in a world where we need closure, the big C word,
Mm,
right? And here's the thing, that to me, that's drama. That's living in drama
yeah.
and victimhood, and it's the perpetuating of it. And listen, God knows I loathe the victim. I played one for 35 years. I can sniff a victim out like nobody's business. Seriously, here's the thing. It's easy to fall into victim mentality. Like, why did they say that to me? And here's what I know, and I know this to my bones, and I will take this to the grave with me. Nothing happens to you, it will happen for you. The minute you personalize something someone says, you got to go back to start and you've got to start over because trust me, it's not to be personalized. If I walk in a room and I call you a certain name, an anatomy on my body, you're going to have a reaction to it. But if because you're learning, well, I'm not an A, but if I walk in the room and I call you a car, you're going to think something's wrong with me because you don't have an attachment to it. We learn what to be offended by.
Mm,
Why can't we just look at it and be neutral with it? So you think I'm an A, whatever. You can think whatever you want about me. I can't tell you what to think about me. But again, that goes to another C word, control.
mm.
Control the narrative. And like you said, when you can let go and you can surrender, like there it is. That's the peace, man. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think that we are kind of pulled in by society to be completely drama inflicted. I mean, look at our politics and everything else in this world. Like everything is so drama filled. It's one of the reasons why I don't pay attention to it. Um, but I love this concept of well is, people are going to think whatever they want about you. I think what the interesting part is, and something that I had to learn about myself was when someone says that, do I internally believe that that really is who I am? And if I don't agree with it, then what they say doesn't bother me because that's their perspective and they've got whatever going on in their background that caused them to think that direction, and that's fine. And that was one of the ways that I used to kind of separate myself from feeling bad when someone would say something about me or call me something or, try to be like, oh, well, you didn't do this and this and this. If I knew that I did everything that I planned to do, right? Which means you have to have strong boundaries. You have to have a strong self worth and know who you are as a person. It made it a lot easier to detach from those things when people say stuff. Because I'm like, no, I know that I did that, or no, I know I didn't mean it that way. So I'm sorry that you took it that way, but I can't do anything about that. We can talk about it. And if you choose not to, well, then that's on you. But I'm not gonna take your burden and add it to my plate and then walk around with it. And I think that's what a lot of us do. And I did that for
I,
years.
I agree. Yep. Well, it's nice. Like you don't want to call people out. You don't want to disagree with anybody. Like, good girls do this and good girls do that. And I also think that, the way through life is by the lens of awareness. And what you're talking about is knowing yourself. And I work with a lot of midlife women. We get to a certain point in life and we're like, who am I? And I will tell you the best place to start, if you are really truly not sure who you are, you have got to go define your top 5 values.
Mm.
And I'm going to tell you, values will change. I don't value what I valued in my 30s, in my 60s. And people say, how do I protect that? Well, you use boundaries. If simplicity is my value, and it is my number one value, I'm not going to take on anything that's drama filled because that ain't simple, man. I'm not letting you in, whether you're family or not. Nope, no
Yep.
thank you. Door's not open. Freedom. I value freedom so much, Kat. I'm not even riding to an event with you because I want to know I can leave when I want to leave. So it's really about getting your values, knowing who you are at this stage of your life, and then
Hmm.
getting a protection around it, a boundary around that value, and then bringing it to life inside of you. Then your
Mm.
thoughts will begin a new process. So there's a little formula for your listeners.
Oh, I love that. And I love this too because, when we talk about values, one thing that you said that I want to make sure everybody hears is your values can change.
Absolutely.
Your values can change depending on the circumstances you're in, depending on the part of life that you're in, depending on the people that you're around. Those values can shift. And I've seen that happen with myself as well. So I love this because we are not taught that we can change and evolve. Once we become a certain version, that's who we're supposed to be. And you'll see that even with friends and family that, when you do start to do things different, they're like, I don't get it. Or you get backlash or you get people and that's okay because it just means that they're uncomfortable because you're doing something that they're not comfortable with. But that doesn't mean that it's wrong, right? It just means that there's been a shift. And I don't think that we talk about this enough in society is that we are or should be ever evolving human beings, ever evolving, because that's how you learn, that's how you grow, that's how you get to the potential that you want to be, not by doing the same thing over and over and over and over and expecting a different result. That is the
Yeah.
definition of insanity, right? So I love this concept. And I just want to make sure that the listeners hear this, that like you can create a bucket of values, and that's absolutely wonderful. And then as you start to grow and evolve, pay attention to those, come back to them, see if they still align or if you need to shift them so you can continue to evolve and grow and create more boundaries for the next space that you're in.
Absolutely. And in my School of Spiritual Arts, I have an online school. We reevaluate our values every year, the beginning of the year. Like, okay, so these were my values for 2025. Who am I in 2026? Well, okay, I love this part about me, and I realized I learned this, but here's, because people do, what are vision boards, and they do,
Mm-hmm.
what's the word you make, every year you want to get the, out there, you want to make the
Oh,
resolutions,
the
right?
resolution. Yeah. I was
Like,
like, blah,
no.
blah, blah.
Oh, we're going to make being boards. Who do I want to be in 20,
Ooh.
right? So what do? You look at the values that you had in 2025. You look at them. What do I love? What's the next variation of this value? How can it go deeper? And we pin it on our boards and we're being it, which is AKA the law of attraction. So it's very simple. I'm all about simple, and I teach spiritual dupes, meaning I take the big fancy stuff and I make it really practical, really simple. And you don't need a $150 sound bath. You can go out and stand on the earth and listen to your breath. That's who I am.
Mm. Oh, I love that. And not to down anybody that does that stuff. But again,
Correct.
we get into a space where everything ends up turning into some type of profit, right? And while there
Right.
is wonderful stuff that is out there, it doesn't necessarily mean that it works for you. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have it in order to make a move or be different or to start your pathway and your journeys. I love that you break this down in simplicity because, again, everything is marketed. everything is for price. Everything is, this is the best way to do it. No, this is the best way to do it. But if you're paired with this is the best way to do it. And we all get drug into it, right? It's just part of how it is. So let me ask you this, when you say you break it down super simple, how do people start to figure out what works for them? How do we start going down that path?
So I work with nature. I work with the elements. There's earth, there's air, there's fire, and there's water. I have a free assessment on my site. You might say to me, "Oh, I resonate with the earth." And that's cool. And you totally might. The minute of the energy you're in when you take that assessment, that's the exact place you want to be right now to start your journey. Get out your little journal or however you do it and make note. Here's what I found on July 24th at 10 p.m. or whatever, and write it down and become that person in that moment. So the elements is
Mm.
where I start. Because listen, everything we need is in nature, and everything we need is in this body. I mean, look at the systems, the circulatory, the everything out there is mimicked inside of us. We are nature, right?
Oh,
So
100%.
back to that original, who am I? That question. Like, ask that question, ask it every morning. Wake up. When's the last time you really thought, who am I? Usually we think, who am I, when we're in introspective, deep thought. But what if you woke up in the morning and you asked, who am I today? And then it became a choice based on your values.
I love the fact of waking up in the morning and asking yourself questions and kind of pondering on that aspect of it versus the to-do list and the things that I've got to do this and I've got to go talk to this person that like and you start what is it prophesizing you start
Okay.
building the future before it's even started, which I am totally guilty of. So I'm not saying I'm not putting out there that I'm perfect whatsoever. I used to do that so hardcore. And now if I find myself waking up and I know I have a lot of things that need to be done and my brain starts spiraling in that direction, I immediately stop and I'm like, nope, nope, we're not doing that. We are not doing that. Where is the good in it today? And I try to shift the focus back to it because it's just like you say. And I know that, for some, this might not make sense, but the way that you do think about things, especially when you wake up first thing in the morning, really does affect how you see things for the rest of the day. So they say, what you think about is what you perceive. Boy, is that like the ultimate truth? Because the brain, neurologically, if we want to get very scientific, literally does not like to be wrong. So it's going to search for whatever it is to prove that direction. Like there's no woo-woo or anything behind that. There's literally scientific fact that the brain is like, oh, we're going to have a really crappy day and this is going to happen and this person is probably going to be a jerk. Let's go find it. And it searches for that, which is mind blowing to me when I think about that. So the importance of our thoughts and being able to redirect them, I think, is something that starting with first thing in the morning and before you go to bed is super beneficial to be able to do.
You will always find evidence for what you believe. It's just the way we're wired, right? If you
Yeah.
look for evidence that the world is good, you will find evidence that the world is good, right? And one of the things I teach my clients also is you can't run away. Some people run away in a bottle, some people run away in shopping addiction, some people run away in relationships. Because here's the thing, everywhere you go, there you are. You're taking
Hmm.
that version of yourself. And so self-work, inner work, it's key, it's pivotal at this time in our life. If we're talking about the world we live in is so fill in the blank, I promise you what you fill in that blank with is what your personal world is like.
Mm,
Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask this, when we talk about psychic abilities and being intuitive and I know that your focus is a lot with middle-aged women. For people in general, I know that we all find ourselves in a space where we're like, I don't know who I am. I don't know the direction that I'm supposed to go. I feel like maybe I've heard some things before. What would be some suggestions or what has helped you moving through this path to become closer with your own intuitiveness and your own, like being able to not only hear what your body is saying, but also being able to move forward with the belief of it.
Mhm.
That makes
So,
sense.
so there's a word that turns people off, and I say it, and now I'm getting a dupe for it. Meditation.
Dun,
You
dun,
throw,
dun.
you throw the M word out there, and people are like, can't meditate. I can't shut my mind off. I can't. Right. And so here's the thing, like, you can do it because meditation is not about emptying your mind of thoughts. Because guess what? You ain't ever going to do that. The mind is meant to think. The reality of meditation is like you're sitting on the riverbank, your thoughts are coming down and they're going and they're going, and you're going, oh, here I go with my thought. The reality is, boom, you got to come back. You can't. You've got to say, oh, there I go. I'm off track. And you've got to bring yourself back to that spot on the riverbank. That's meditation. Get a word you love. I'm looking right up here and I see the word trust. I'll look at the word trust and I'll sit here and I'll just focus on trust. I'm not setting out with the intention of meditation. I'm just going to focus on trust. And inevitably, I told you my furniture's coming. Did you put the wash in the dryer? Do you have to like it's going to come in? It's going to happen.
Hmm.
But you keep coming back to that word. I call it your either your Star or your Pole Star. Find your anchor and then keep coming back to it. It's simple.
Hmm. Yeah. You know what's really funny too is when I first heard the word meditation, I was like, oh, I've always wanted to try it. And then we have this concept of, okay, so we're supposed to shut everything out and everything's supposed to be quiet. And I remember the first few times I tried, I was like, oh my God, shut up. Like it won't stop. This is ridiculous. This is so stupid. Who does this? And then I was listening to there is a lady on Instagram. She's known as the holistic psychologist. She's like one of my favorite people to follow. She does a lot of um, breakdowns on childhood trauma and things like that, and how we grow up as adults and how it affects us now. And one of the things that she was talking about was bringing back to center. And so, what she does to help bring herself back to center, she focuses on the five senses. And so, what she'll do is for like 5 minutes, is she'll be like, okay, what do I taste? And focus on that, name them out, right? What do I see? Focus it out, name it all out. And she just kind of goes through that. And what that did for her was she said it helps her kind of like come back down to present and center and then move on with her day. And I was like, that is so cool. So I started kind of trying it and I was like, ooh, this is really neat. And so then I was like, what if I could use that when I meditate? What if I decided to go sit in the backyard because that's where you're going to get all of your senses, right? And I'm going to close my eyes and then I'm just going to focus on each one. And I'm going to label off at least five things from each sense. And then we're going to walk into that. I will tell you, that was one of the coolest things to be able to do. And my brain loves to like hyper focus on something. So when I would say, okay, well, what do I hear? I'd be like, oh, I hear a bird over here. And I think I heard a car that was there. Was that from behind me? So it was like I kind of focused so much on that one sense that by the time I got to all five of them, if I made it to all five, all of a sudden I'd realized that I had been sitting in that posture for 15, 20 minutes. And I can't tell you what went through my head. It's one of the coolest experiences. And then when you get done, it's like, it's empty, but in like the best way possible.
It's kind of almost like indescribable, right? Like
Yeah.
because there's nothing really to describe. Like yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. It's everything that everybody always wants to experience, but you don't know how to experience. And then when it happens, you're like, wow. Okay, that was kind of cool. And then you get to choose like, okay, what do I want the first thought to be for the direction that I want to go? It's undescribable. It's one of the coolest things. So if there's anybody that's like, I'm a very visual person, so I pick up on things like that.
Mhm.
That was one of the best ways. And I still do it to this day when I do meditations. If I'm really wanted to be like deep in, like, I am so tired of everything else around me, that is one of the things that I will go and do to be able to kind of hyper focus on that moment and that instance. And I love being able to pick a word. I feel like I've had somebody else tell me that as well. Like they picked a word and that's what they envisioned the whole time. And it's really neat to see the way that time passes by.
Oh,
You
yeah.
feel like you literally were sitting there for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, holy crap, that was 20 minutes? That's awesome. It's just, it's one of the coolest feelings. So I love that you come back to meditation because I do. I think that we need to come back to center, whatever that looks like for us in that moment. There are sometimes for me that I will go take a walk, especially if I can go take a hike. And let me tell you, my shoes are off within a matter of seconds, and I'm the one that's walking in the water. Always, every single time, and there's something about that that is so calming, and it's just like it drowns everything else out. It's one of the neatest feelings to be able to describe. So if you can find those things that that when you're doing it, when you're being close to nature, or when you're focusing on your meditation, that like it brings you that sense of peace, boy, act on it and like make that a part of your daily routine, or for when you're having those really hard times, because you're going to be able to come back to that feeling.
Oh, totally. And that's why I created the element assessment. Go find your element. It comes with a whole little workbook and explains little things to you about how to use your element. That was divinely given to me. I mean, everything I do, everything I teach, that's why my teaching is not cookie cutter. There's nothing traditional about what I teach in my School of Spiritual Arts. It's all given to me. And
Mm-hmm.
I just know that we're all here for something bigger. And I'm really proud to be leading the way in this new way of being in the world.
Oh, I love it so much. So Veronica, tell everybody then, how can they find you? How can they connect with you if they want to be a part of your world?
Oh, stay tuned because the Back Porch Prophet is coming where you can hang on the back porch with
So
me.
excited.
I call it a little bit of side-eye sass. When something comes up that I don't agree with spiritually, I'll be putting that out too. In the meantime, until we get that up and running, you can go to veronicadrake.com, download your free element assessment, find out your sacred element, and then begin working with it. Socials are all Veronica Drake, excuse me, Instagram and TikTok are the Back Porch Prophet. So that's how you can find me.
Love it. Veronica, do you have any last words or sayings or anything you would like to leave the audience with today?
Understand that you define your worth. And it's not in
Mm.
dollar amounts, honey. It's not in dollars. And so
Isn't that? Oh, that is so true. That is, oh, I love you so much, Veronica. Thank you so much for joining today. Oh my gosh, to everybody else out there, oh, there is no way that you didn't just walk away with some type of nugget from this conversation. Of course, we'll make sure we have all of Veronica's information in the show notes. We'll have a link so you can get directly to her assessment as well, because I'm going to go find mine because this is super cool. And I hope this gives you a moment, especially like I said, I know we're halfway through the year and this is the time where we start to reflect and we want to look and pay attention to the directions that we want to go. Maybe it's time that we don't necessarily look at all of the materialistic things of um, the outside world joys that we're supposed to want, but like, what do you want inward? What do you feel called to explore, to experience? Do you need to slow down? What does that look like for you? Go, like Veronica said, find your values, focus there first, because that ultimately is going to lead you down the pathway that you are meant to take. And I promise, while it feels super hard, it is one of the most amazing experiences you could ever be a part of. So, until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. Catch you later. Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Chat with Kat today, where real stories meet real solutions. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review on Apple, and share this with someone who may also need to hear this as well. Let's also keep the conversation going. Follow me on socials at The Lotus Effect, connect with our incredible guests, and remember, you are never alone. Your story matters, and you have the ability and the power to rewrite it. You always have a choice. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and keep showing up as the incredible, unstoppable